Hello everyone! GGG has finally given us information about the 12 Ascendancies available in the early access. And I spent the entire day on stream going through them one by one, each Ascendancy, each node, trying to figure out what builds would make sense on the Ascendancies, what looks safe to start and whatnot. And instead of just uploading highlights from the stream, I've decided to make a proper video talking about each Ascendancy very briefly. I don't want this video to be long, but I will highlight what I think about each Ascendancy when it comes to first character, and what kind of experience you should expect if you started as your first character in Path of Exile 2. So let's get into it. First, let's take a look at Infernalist and warn people about some stuff, because I've seen a lot of misinformation regarding Demon Form. Demon Form does not look very good. It does look good when you just read it, but you have to realize that everything Demon Form gives you also costs you your weapon on top of Ascendancy points and big degen. I would love to be wrong about this, because Demon Form looks so cool and I would want it to be strong, but based on the information we have, I cannot recommend it as a safe starter. If it ends up being good, it's fine, I was wrong, but it's probably not going to be easy to make good. What I think is going to be good is the Loyal Hellhound, which is basically the Guardian minion from PoE1. Hopefully it's half as good, at least, as the Guardian from PoE1, because the Sentinel of Radiance is so strong and the description of Infernal Hellhound is pretty much the same. So I'm hoping for something similar. I wouldn't play fire skills on Infernalist, as I think there's better Ascendancies for that. And to me, this Ascendancy is purely a minion Ascendancy or minion explode Ascendancy. I don't think it's super safe. I think there is a chance it will fail, but since I know I'm playing it, if you're going to be following my journey on the YouTube, I don't think you're going to have too many problems, because hopefully I will be able to hotfix them at the time where I encounter them. Blood Mage to me screams as a second character Ascendancy. While I don't think this Ascendancy is weak, it has a problem where the first node basically makes your character weaker, and you would probably not even allocate it the first time you ascend, and you would wait till second ascension. I do think that it's gonna actually be very strong endgame, as crit scaling and grasping wounds for defenses is probably gonna be good on pretty much any crit caster, but I would avoid starting it as my first character without more knowledge of the game. Stormweaver, on the other hand, is in my opinion the best Path of Exile 2 first character spellcaster, and it's not even close. This Ascendancy gets more damage than any caster Ascendancy, and if Stormweaver doesn't deal enough damage, I don't think any spellcaster will early on. The way I would build this character is, if I'm playing Cold, I go for 1, 4, 6, and 7, allowing me to get more exposure, 2 chills, and 2 shocks. If I am playing a Firecaster, I would go for 1, 6, 7, 8, where I would just build full on damage. Go for exposure, go for double shock, and go for Arcane Surge for a little more cast speed and mana regen. There's also the option to go Archmage endgame, but I would recommend staying away from Archmage at the start until you see people figure it out and see if the mana regen is actually good enough, as we just don't have enough information about it. But it is good that the Arcane Surge nodes actually look strong, because if Archmage is good, this will be the Ascendancy to play it on, and it will allow you to generate a lot more endgame scaling as well. Chronomancer, on the other hand, is not an Ascendancy I would recommend as your first character. This Ascendancy could be good if you know what you are doing and you are using a skill that doesn't need more damage from its Ascendancy and you just want the utility. But honestly, I would avoid it, and as fun as it sounds to freeze time and reset your cooldowns and whatnot, I don't think the character power you gain from this, unless you're doing something very specific, is high enough to justify playing this over Stormweaver. I do think that Temporal Rift is probably sleeper OP in Path of Exile 2, just because recovery should be a lot harder to come by, but honestly, the playstyle of it and the skill required to pull it off correctly is too high for anyone who is going to be new to the game, or anyone who is playing Path of Exile 2 for the first time, even if they played PoE. So I would just recommend staying away from Chronomancer, at least on your first character. Let's take a look at the Warrior Ascendancies, and let's start with Titan. Titan is, in my opinion, the most versatile Ascendancy in Path of Exile 2 so far. It's basically the champion of PoE2. You can play anything on this Ascendancy. Is it gonna be good? Well, we don't really know yet, as the numbers are really hard to do since we don't have the access to the entire skill tree, but if you go for 8, 4, 5, 1, you can pretty much play any skill, any build archetype, anything, as long as you are okay starting in the warrior starting spot. Because none of the nodes are actually specific to melee or slams or anything. What you actually want to do though on Titan to be safe, and what GGG Pro expects you to do, is either 2, 3, 4, 5 or 2, 3, 6, 7, with the option to replace 3 for 8 if you want more tankiness. Realistically, I can't imagine playing a melee titan being ever bad, and I think it is the #1 choice for any melee build. Warbringer is a lot harder to judge as we don't really know how good Imploding Impacts is going to be. Personally, I wouldn't recommend playing Warbringer unless you want to play a really heavy totem playstyle build, or you want to go full on block with a Turtle Charm and invest into every block node on the skill tree and still get a lot of block despite the 35% less block chance. But I still find it difficult to justify playing Warbringer over Titan just because of how solid Titan is and how many options it actually has. Ignoring Warcry cooldowns could be really good too, but honestly, I think the way PoE2 is being played, the base cooldown on Warcries should be more than good enough to use it whenever you need to use it. So I don't think it's as strong as it sounds on paper. I would recommend playing Titan if you want to play Warrior. I think it's better, and Warbringer has some potential if Imploding Impacts is really good, but I wouldn't play it as your first character. Deadeye. Just as we thought people are actually gonna play something new and cool. Honestly, I think Deadeye is insanely strong. I think it's the best bow ascendancy and the best crossbow ascendancy. I'm sorry to all the mercenary endurers, I think Deadeye is just better. The way I would build Deadeye is 4, 5, 7, 8 for anything that doesn't go for frenzies, and then go for 1, 2, 7, 8 if you are playing with frenzies using barrage or rain of arrows. But honestly, going for endless munitions and windward, we already know how this works, we already know how this interacts. We know it's good. There's nothing to be proven about it. It's just good. And I can't imagine having a bad start if you go Deadeye bows or Deadeye crossbows. There's also a lot of people talking about Deadeye spell projectiles, which I don't think is gonna be bad, but I wouldn't recommend starting it as I think your first day is gonna be really painful and you don't wanna have that experience the first time you play the game. The second Ranger Ascendancy being Pathfinder, I unfortunately cannot really recommend to start as your first character because we don't really know how strong Poison is going to be. There's a chance Poison is good and that would basically make Pathfinder good as well, but it's just really hard to say. And honestly, I think how good Pathfinder actually is very much depends on how good Poisonous Concoction is, in my opinion. Again, it might be really good, but I would just not recommend it as your first character. I think you are pigeonholing yourself into playing Poison, and if Poison doesn't perform as well as you would expect, it's going to be very difficult to cook up something else on it. Monk as a class, unfortunately, doesn't really seem to me as appealing for your first character. GGG even mentioned that as much as people enjoy playing Monk, usually Monk has the most amount of deaths of anyone who was testing, and I can easily understand why. Yes, you are quite mobile, but if you don't really know what you are doing, you won't be able to avoid everything, and you are a melee character that doesn't really build good type of defense. I do think that there's a lot of potential, especially in Invoker, as I think the Ascendancy nodes are very strong, with both 1, 2 path and 4 or 5, 6 path being good, and potentially the cast on crit option is always there, but I don't think it is the best for your first character, and I would recommend staying away from Monk unless you actually really want to play that playstyle. If you are looking for something that will for sure work, I don't think I can guarantee you that Monk is going to work. It's very similar for Acolyte of Chayula as well. I think personally Acolyte of Chayula is just worse version of Invoker. If you want to play Acolyte of Chayula, you are basically hoping that Leech is very good, which, we don't really know, but I have my doubts about Leech since GGG has been nerfing recovery on recharge, recoup, everywhere else. Thinking Leech is gonna be like insanely broken is, in my opinion, a little hopeful. If you wanna play Acolyte of Chayula, I highly recommend building around Into the Breach and actually collecting the Flames of Chayula with Lucid Dreaming allocated as well. But watching Mark use it on one of the boss fights, it looked like it would be quite clunky. And again, I feel like you would have to understand the fights well to actually use this properly. And for that reason, I cannot recommend Acolyte of Chayula either. Witchhunter was presented to us as the crossbow ascendancy, and I already mentioned that I feel like Deadeye is just better at that, but that doesn't really mean Witchhunter is necessarily bad. I do think that it's a quite good mapping ascendancy, if you go for 2, 3, 8, and then whatever filler node you take as last, you will have really good clear speed, as you don't really need to damage monsters for them to die. If you are culling them from like half their HP, you're doing 30% of their life in the first hit, and then they explode to clear the rest of the screen. But I would be a little worried on the bossing side of things, unless Witchbane is really good, and breaking enemies' concentration actually matters a lot on bosses, which we can't unfortunately really tell. But again, I do like Deadeye a lot more. But going Witchhunter crossbows, if your goal is just mapping and killing some monsters early on and then seeing what you can do later, honestly, you will probably be fine. It's gonna be a decent starter. I can't imagine it being too bad. GGG has put a lot of effort into it. It has been tested a lot in all the showcases, and if you want to play Witchhunter over Deadeye, I'm not gonna stop you. It's probably completely fine. Last, and in my opinion, least as well, we have Gemling Legionnaire. This Ascendancy just screams to me, do not play this as your first build. It might be good, sure, but it's not gonna be good as your first build. It doesn't really give you much until you know what you are doing in this game. I don't think it gives you any early game power, and sure, I could easily see Gemling Legionnaire somehow having like the strongest build of early access. But I just don't think it would be a good first character experience, and for that reason, I would highly recommend staying away from it, at least at the start. If you didn't really pay attention during this video, or you just skipped to the end, and you want to have a good time on your first character in Pathfinder 2, just play either Stormweaver, Titan, or Deadeye. If you like the video, comment, like, and subscribe, it helps a lot, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!